We'll take a slight second to prepare. So 1 minute, sorry, there we go. Okay, so hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Alex Pimler, and I am the Communications Officer for the Fulbright Foreign Student Program in the Middle East and North Africa at East, which administers the Fulbright program for the U.S. Department of State. For visually impaired viewers, I'm a young woman with blondish brown hair, pale pink glasses, and a black shirt and a black blazer. I have a white wall background. Today, we will be talking with 4 Fulbrighters with disabilities about their experience applying for the Fulbright Foreign Student Program with the program itself. The Fulbright program is dedicated to ensuring that the program is inclusive to all applicants, regardless of their race, color, sex, age, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, and those with disabilities. The United States also has civil rights laws, including the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires universities in the United States to provide equal access and reasonable accommodations for students with disabilities. I come to this conversation with the background of having 2 disabilities, a learning disability, ADHD, and a chronic health condition that qualifies as a disability, both of which I received accommodation for from my universities during my undergraduate and graduate education. Over the next 45 minutes, we will be asking our Fulbrighters questions about their experience and advice they might have for applicants. I would also like to encourage anyone interested in applying to the Fulbright Foreign Student Program to visit our website and learn more about the application. Deadlines vary by country, but many are due in late April or the month of May. The Fulbright Foreign Student Program allows Fulbrighters from around the world to come to the United States and study for their master's degree. Some of the benefits of the Fulbright program include tuition, living stipend, academic allowances, and travel funds, as well as cultural and orientation programs, English language training, professional enrichment activities, a lifelong alumni network, and so much more. Our panelists today are Zaid Amro, a Palestinian Fulbrighter who received his MA in social work and social development from San Francisco State University, Hazim Ibrahim, an Assyrian Fulbrighter who studied intercultural communication at California State University, Sacramento, Elsa, a New Zealand Fulbrighter who is working on her PhD in music at the University of Chicago, Sharif Abdullah is a current Fulbright Egyptian student who is finishing his master's in marine and atmosphere sciences at Stony Brook University in New York, and Emmanuel Pimentel as a program officer at East, where he works with students in Tunisia, Morocco, and Libya. I'd like to start by having our panelists tell us a little about themselves. So would you please share your name, your disability, and for our alumni, your current occupation? I'm going to start with Zaid. Zaid, do you mind unmuting yourself? While we unmute Zaid, how about Elsa? You can go first.
Now it's okay. You hear me?
Oh yes. Sorry. Yes, Zaid, we hear you now. You start.
Yeah, I'm Ziad from the Palestinian territory. I lost my sight from Jerusalem. Actually, I lost my sight while I was studying at Hebron University. After I finished my studies in psychology and education, I applied for the Fulbright as a master's student and I won. I was one of the winners of this prestigious, let me say, in Palestine scholarship. So I went to San Francisco State University to do my master in social work, practically in community organization. I started the General Union of Palestinians with Disabilities 1991. So I went to the States to continue developing my personal skills and my professional skills in the community organization in order to promote and faster or advance people with disabilities rights in Palestine. I succeeded when I came back in 1997 to do a lot, especially passing a law regarding people with disabilities rights in 1997, immediately after return home from the States. While I'm in the States, I could receive the Distinguished Student Certificate from San Francisco State University President, and also special honor letter from the mayor of San Francisco, because I ran a special campaign to increase the accessibility in the public buses in San Francisco and munis. We call them the light trains and the metro, we call it. So I did a lot of traveling. I did like 20 visits. I visited like 20 states. I did mechanic engineering wheelchair design course in Wheeled Mobility Center in San Francisco State University. Also did a long leadership training with Mobility International. Of course, other activities related to the Fulbright Scholarship, such as the meeting with the governor of California and House representatives from California, also congressmen and women from in Washington when we organized the visit to the White House and to the Congress. Many other activities in social, related to social life, art, everything you can imagine I did while I was in the States, specifically learning how to be a leader and professional community organizer. As a person with disabilities, specifically blind, I was accommodated fully from the first day I arrived to the States. I spent like 2 to 3 weeks, I can't remember exactly, in Bloomington University in Indiana. It was amazing, one of the most wonderful weeks of my life. I knew a lot of people from all over the world, Russia, Mexico, Guatemala, from Suriname, from Syria, from Tunisia and Japan, Spain, all over the world. We did 3 good weeks of traveling and having fun, also studying and learning about the internet, judiciary system in the United States, also learning about mobility and how blind people can be using computers, also how they can go for accommodations, reasonable accommodation while they're studying. Of course, at San Francisco State, the university asked some of...
Saeed, I'm going to pause you for a second because we're going to ask questions about different accommodations.
Okay, great.
All those things in a little bit.
No problem. Go ahead.
But I'm going to have Ailsa introduce herself first.
Sure. Kia ora. My name is Ailsa Lipscomb, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a white woman in my late 20s with long brown hair. I am wearing dark black sunglasses and a purple floral blouse. And behind me is a pink neon light that reads Kia ora, love, a photograph of the night sky, and to my left is my wedding bouquet. I am from New Zealand and was awarded a Fulbright grant in 2015 to pursue my PhD in music at the University of Chicago. And that's where I still am as a student in the final 1.5 years of my dissertation writing. I am what is called medically complex, having been diagnosed with a rare nerve disorder in 2005. Which initially caused widespread chronic pain and muscular dystrophy, but has since also paralyzed my GI system and left me legally blind. When I moved to the United States, I moved also with my guide and mobility service dog, Connie, who was trained for me in New Zealand. And I'm looking forward to this panel. Thank you.
Sharif?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Sharif Abdullah. I'm a Fulbright master candidate in the marine sciences at Stony Brook University. My medical disabilities and anxiety and other physical illnesses. Yeah, I'm looking forward also to participate in this panel with questions regarding to help future Fulbrighters in their stay in the US.
Hazim? Oh, Hazim, you're muted.
Sorry about that. My name is Hazim Ibrahim. I am Syrian and I am currently sitting in my new job, my 3rd day. Whoever can see me, they can see behind me a newsroom. It's the Bloomberg Arabic service. It's called Asharqa News with Bloomberg. So I am interpreter, and I was awarded the Fulbright scholarship in the year 2000, and I stayed for 2 years in the US at California State University, Sacramento. I studied intercultural communication in the master's program, but did not get the degree, and I will get to that when we talk in more details. I have my disability is actually spinal cord injury. At the age of 3, I received a bullet as a child, and I became, spinally or spinal cord injured person, and I used walking sticks first, and then later I became a wheelchair user, and I also was very involved in disability activities in Syria. So I was the national or the Secretary General for the National Council for Disability Affairs in Syria until I left Syria in 2012 and I came to Dubai.
Great. Thank you so much, Hazem. So my first question is going to be, were you anxious about applying for the Fulbright program because of your disability? And I'm going to have Sharif start first.
Yes, I was very anxious, but I sought advice from previous Fulbright alumni and also friends that helped me with statements and the application process in general. So I would advise you to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Elsa?
Thanks. Yeah, I also was, so much so in fact that I chose initially to not disclose my disability during the first stage of the application process. It wasn't until I had an in-person interview that I revealed that part of who I was, not because I'm ashamed of it in any way, but because I was concerned about what preconceptions people might have of me because of it. But in the years since as I've kind of grown and matured as a researcher, I've really realized that what I study and how I study is deeply informed by my own experiences of disability, and that my relationship to my body is part of what makes me the scholar I am. So if I were to go back today and be applying, I think I would have a very different relationship to disclosure than I did initially.
Zaid or Hazem, do you have, since you're a little bit further back, it's been quite a few years since you applied for the Fulbright program, but do you remember having any anxiety about applying and about disclosing your disability?
In the first stage, I'm Ziad speaking. In the first stage, writing stage, filling the application and writing the essay, I was anxious. But as soon as, because I didn't know what they would really want, what can convince them that I am the right person to be eligible for this scholarship. So when I filled my application and give them everything, the package, I relaxed. But then in the interview, in the first 5 minutes, I felt myself like they were very calm, very friendly, and I felt very comfortable. And we spent like 3/4 of an hour laughing and talking, and then they informed me that you are the right candidate for this scholarship. So in the beginning, I felt anxious, but then later I relaxed because I was sure that, whatever happens is going to happen.
Hazem?
In my case, it's interesting because I was studying English literature, and it was my 3rd year, and I was attending a theatrical play. I think it was Shakespeare or something. And one of the attendees was the American cultural officer. Her name was, or is, Joliet Ward. So I was vocal when I said something, and then she approached me at the end and said, "Why don't you apply to a Fulbright scholarship?" And I said to her, "Well, I'm still a student." She said, "Why not try this year? If you don't get it, you can try next year." And so I did. I was encouraged to apply, and I wanted to study intercultural communication and media, actually. I wanted to study media politics, or the relationship between culture and media and politics. And so I felt that my own experience, having been shot as a child in a political conflict, is very much related to that. So I did mention that in the application because as our colleague, I think Elsa is her name. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. She mentioned that it's part of who she is. And I thought that my disability is not only part of who I am, but also part of what I want to do and part of my message in life in general. So I did mention it. And I never thought this will be held against me. Actually, on the contrary, I thought that would be a plus point. I knew that if I am competing with someone else with the same credentials, with the same, skills or I mean the same achievements, I might be given a plus point because of the challenges that I might have faced in my life. So it was never something negative I would hide, but rather something I was proud of, and I did mention. And I went there. It was part of my attitude that this is who I am, and I don't think it should be a problem.
Great. Emmanuel, maybe you could talk to us also about what support is there to help with the application for those with disabilities.
So Amadee's program officers and program assistants in the United States, as well as Amadee's program officers and Fulbright Commission officers in the host countries are available to assist with anything related to the application. They'll answer questions and provide resources to assist students in preparing for standardized tests, also preparing for writing their essays. They'll provide support for that. But generally, students or not applicants are required to complete the program on their own, but Amadee's program officers and commission program officers will be there to assist you throughout the process and into your submission of the application. And
Emmanuel, can I build that? When do you suggest discussing your disability with the staff on the application, before the application? When do you think is the right time to disclose?
Well, you can definitely disclose it during the application process, but you should provide any accommodation, support, needs, or disabilities as soon as you're nominated. This allows Amadee's to determine the best university options and locations for your particular needs, and for us to conduct a suitable research for institutions and programs that fit your goals. It also helps Amadee's and the Fulbright Commission to determine what other kind of support you'll need, not just during the placement process, but also during your degree program throughout the next year or 2 years until you graduate.
So I'm going to ask our Fulbrighters just generally. So the application is very, very stressful for many applicants. There's lots of different parts. There's testing, there's essays, there's personal statements. What is some general advice you have about the application? And I'm going to start with Hazem this time.
I think that any person with disability, if they are already making it to Fulbright, I mean, if they are competing, they'll be, qualified enough to fill an application. I think they should approach it with an open mind. It's also good to consult with other Fulbright alumni or with other colleagues who have studied abroad, because if somebody is doing it in a local context or starting from a local context, it is great for them, or it will be very helpful for them to add a broader perspective, I would say, from an international perspective, especially when formulating the statement of purpose, as it was called at that time. I'm not sure if it's called the same now, but I mean, people are supposed to write essays, I guess, or one or more essays, and so it helps, in my view, if they have a disability which is relevant to their studies in a way or another, to mention it. And I don't think it will count against them if they have been able to prove themselves, elsewhere in their I mean, studies, in their grades, in their achievements. So that's what I have, I guess.
Sharif, since you're the most recent applicant, what is some advice you have for the application generally?
He's muted.
Oh, Sharif, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So yeah, I would echo what Hazem said. Just apply and follow your dream, and also try to reach out to alumni, friends, and your advisor if possible. And also, if you require special accommodation because of your illness, before going to US, make sure that you ask your Fulbright advisor if this or that place would offer you this special accommodation. I mean, like, let people know what you really need, and they'll help you. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Elsa?
I want to echo what Sharif and Hazim have said about reaching out to alumni. I had a really great experience working with Fulbright New Zealand and being able to be connected with other Fulbright Award grantees who were at my current institution. So I was able to have like coffee meetings with them and talk through my application process, or particularly as I got ready for the interview, I had a really great opportunity to be able to sit down with a number of different Fulbright alumni and do like a mock interview. And that really helped practice the types of answers that I wanted to be able to give, but also just alleviate some of the nerves around the interview process. But in general, my advice would also be take your time. The process can feel really long and really tiring. And especially if you live with chronic illness, chronic pain, disability, sometimes that type of process can be really exhausting. So I found being able to spread out aspects of the application over a longer period helped to alleviate some stress, because it allowed for days when I might not be able to work as much due to like a pain flare up or things like that. I'd also recommend making sure that in your application, you illustrate what makes you excited, both academically and personally, because reviewers want to know who you are and why you're interested specifically in the Fulbright grant rather than just a general scholarship. So you want to make sure that when you craft those essays and academic and personal statements, that you let them see the kind of scholar you are, but also the kind of colleague you would be in your new department and the kind of citizen of the world that you are.
Yeah, and I'm also going to second what Elsa said, is that Fulbright is really looking for applicants who are wanting to make a difference when they return home. We want to show what makes you unique and what your passions are. That really should come across in your application. When you get hundreds of thousands of applications to read, you want to see someone who's unique and special. So you should really try to focus on what makes you you and trying to think about what you think we want to hear about who you are. Ziad, is there anything else you want to add? I think you are actually muted, and we need to unmute you again. I'm sorry. Do you mind unmuting yourself?
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
I'm unmuted now. Just I want to say one little thing. Be honest. Be yourself. Don't exaggerate describing your dreams and your your needs. Be honest about your disability. Be open about it, because the Fulbright staff are waiting to hear from you, to provide you with the accommodations and with the assistance you need. And in the end, talk about your personal goals. Don't be ashamed of your person, because your personal goals are as important as your professional goals. Don't hesitate to talk about what you dream of when you come back home, what changes you are going to do in your community. And that if you do that honestly and clearly, you will definitely be one of the Fulbright students.
Thank you, Ziad. Manu, you touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else you'd like to add? Does Ahmadis take disabilities into consideration when placing students at universities?
Yes, we do. We take it into consideration, but we also consider the university selection process in a holistic way. So in addition to taking accommodations and or a disability support into account, we consider the nominees' academic portfolio, their transcripts, their standardized tests and work experience when selecting universities to apply for. So our goal is to ensure that the nominees select the institutions that best fit their background and academic goals, but it also provides the academic experience and support that the students need, including specific accommodation support and disability support services that will help them become successful throughout their program.
Yeah, so the earliest you tell us, the more we can find the right place for you, I think is a good summary. So I'm going to talk a little bit about pre-departure, like when you're getting ready to go. So for the Fulbrighters, did you make any special preparation before you left because of your disability? And I think I'm going to start with Elsa first, because you had a guide dog who you would definitely need and have to make accommodations.
Yes, certainly. So I think my experience in application was a little different from some others here, as I applied directly to universities myself, and then was the Fulbright was additional to that, but I was doing my own application process and selecting universities. But what that meant was that one of the first steps of preparation I did is that when I was invited to the United States to visit a number of schools as part of Prospective Student Day, so the schools that I'd been accepted to, I made sure that during my visits that I stopped off at the campus disability office or disability advisors. I did this because chronic illness can be really difficult to accommodate in a classroom setting, because so often symptoms can vary from day to day. So the type of accommodation or support you might need on day 1 might look very different from day 7 or day 17. So I wanted to jumpstart some of these conversations, because it gave me a sense of what different schools offered. And it allowed me, as part of my selection process, to determine what school gave me the kind of feeling of that I would be supported there in my whole self with my disabilities. But what it also meant is that once I did make my final decision to attend the University of Chicago, I had already had some of the preliminary conversations about what kind of accommodations I might need and what sort of documentation I was going to need to be able to provide from my New Zealand healthcare providers as I made the transition. Then the other thing that I did a lot of work on, as Alex mentioned, was that I spent quite a bit of time researching service dog laws. Service dog laws vary widely from country to country. And what I learned very quickly in the United States is that there are also the different levels of like state, federal, county that you have to contend with that I didn't have to think through back in New Zealand. So I spent some time thinking and researching what my rights were traveling with Connie. Confrontation is something that I'm really uncomfortable with. And so one of the ways that I like to prepare for that is to be as knowledgeable and as prepared as possible to know what my rights are, so that if a situation were to arise in which those rights were challenged, then I would have already done some of the necessary work in being able to defend my right to enter a space with my service dog. The other thing that I want to briefly mention is that I made the decision to live in student housing when I first moved, primarily because it came furnished. So that was one less thing that as a disabled international student, I needed to worry about doing. It's not like I can jump in a car and drive off to IKEA. And so I'm really grateful that I made that decision initially, because it helped the transition process. Through student housing, my rent included all my utilities, so I didn't need to set up additional payments for things like that. And it also was an extension of the accommodations that I was already receiving through the university. So the types of accommodations that I had approved through the university office were extended to incorporate or encompass my housing situation also.
That's really great to think about. What about you, Hazem?
Okay, I want to mention 2 things. When I applied, they helped me choose the university, but I had always concerns about the weather. I lived in Damascus for the most part, so I was worried I would go to a cold place. And I hated cold places because they would cause me problems with spinal cord injuries. And so I only chose California. For some reason, I was told California would be more or less, would have a similar climate to Syria's climate. So I restricted my options to California only. Now, in retrospect, I regret that, but that's what I thought at that time, because weather was a very big concern for me. And so I ended up in Sacramento, California State University, Sacramento, which I might have gone to a different place had I chosen different criteria. So that was an element, an important element. And secondly, having been young at that time, having just finished university and having been, living with my family, I was a bit more emotionally dependent on my family than I thought. So when I went to the US, it was quite a big jump for me to just leave my family. Yes, I was independent, and yes, I lived independently in the US, and I stayed in the dorms, and I had a roommate, almost minimal arrangements or special arrangements. Only the mirror at the cupboard was a bit lower. I mean, that was it. I was close to the shower room. That was it, actually. But other than that, I did not need any further accommodation. But the psychological part was a difficult one for me. And that's actually what caused me at the end not to be able to finish on time and not to be able to finish the degree, although I finished as a Fulbright scholar. So I think that is an important aspect to take care of for those who are leaving their families or their support systems for the first time, is that they should be ready and should be careful about how to handle this, and they should seek help early in the process and not wait until it's a bit too late, like I did in my case. So I'm not ashamed or shy about it. I'm always honest about it. I did get the experience I wanted, and I didn't get the degree, but I got what I wanted in terms of education and in terms of experience, including that for a person with disability. And I advise others who have concerns about leaving their families or their systems that they are used to, whether they come from developing or developed countries, it doesn't matter. There is some element of family support or a social support that that they might be, that they might have to consider, they might have to think about. And early psychological preparation is as important as early logistical preparation, for that matter.
Sharif, you've talked a little bit about you've used the counseling services on campus and other things to help with your anxiety. Can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yes, I did actually seek help from the campus, and that was very helpful. Because they gave me medication at that time, and that was also helpful. It was a traumatizing experience for me to be alone. Although, as I said, I was an independent person, but the social support, the family support system that I enjoyed for 25 years was suddenly not there. And I didn't live in the, it was not yet the real internet era. So I was really cut off in that sense from daily support, psychological support. And so it was a bit, I mean, I can share one little funny story. I had a lot of clothes with me to avoid washing my clothes. But at the end of 3 months, there was a big pile in my room. So I had to wash my clothes. So I had to seek help from colleagues. How do I wash my clothes? And I put them all in the washing machine. So I didn't know how to use washing machine. So I think if you have a 5 kilograms washing machine, I put, I think, 20 kilograms. And so at the end, they were dry. They didn't even, they were not washed, simply because I didn't know how to handle that simple thing. So even these little things did matter for me. It was frustrating. I was a spoiled child, I guess. And so, yeah, that element, I don't know. I hope none of the other participants with disabilities did face that. They might have faced other things. But also, it is important to make that mental journey and transition. And also the Fulbright people were very helpful. And even when I was at some point discharged from the program and asked them for further help to let me in just to finish certain credits, and they were kind enough to let me finish that. So also don't hesitate to ask for help from MEDist or Fulbright if you need to.
Great. Sharif, what about your experience?
So my experience, also I have certain physical illnesses. So as soon as I reached to the US, I went to the Student Accessibility Center and I gave them the documentation required to document my disabilities. And I also had a back problem. So the Student Accessibility Center gave me the permission to get a chair. I know that this might be like a small detail, but like these small things might help and make your life easier in regards in your studying, because like I needed a specific chair in my dorms. So the wrapping up things, as soon as you go to the university, document, go to the Student Accessibility Center, give them the necessary documentation, speak with the people there, and it might help you. Like, for example, during the COVID, also, like, my illnesses requires me to live next to a hospital, so I had to stay in the dorms because, like, we had a hospital next to the dorms, and also the Student Accessibility Center helped me with that to give me the necessary permission along with my professor. And sometimes, for example, you need an assignment. I can't do it I can't do it. I can't do it on time, so I just have a permission to submit it a few days afterwards. So it's quite helpful that you document it and to be honest and frank and in a polite way with your professor, with your advisors, and yeah, and yeah, and it passes.
Yeah, and I can also speak to my own experience. I attended, different universities in the U.S. and abroad with my own disabilities, and the first thing I did when I arrived at college was I actually tried to do my first semester without any accommodations, and then realized that was a bad idea. And finally went to my disability office at the end of at the beginning of my next semester and said, I think I do need help, which was something I had been raised not to do. And so when I arrived, I went and they gave me accommodations to having a note taker in classes. So even though I was taking notes, if there were gaps or if I had to miss a class, I was always had a note taker. I got extra time on exams. And then they also had certain things of like, if I wanted to take an exam, it could be in a different room. And then when I went to my PhD program for my exams, or my master's program, I got to use a computer to type up my exams instead of write them by hand. So there's different accommodations, I think, on a wide variety of levels within the US. And you'll find that most accommodation offices are very, very helpful and very supportive. But like Emmanuel says, when you're picking a selection for your university, it does help for us to know in advance what your disability is, because that way we can look at that and say, okay, these universities are really, really good at working with students with disabilities, or these universities have a really great hospital on campus or nearby. And so these are things that we can think about when we do that that are very useful. So Emmanuel, this one thing that I think we can bring up after Sharif's comment is, what options are there for health insurance in the United States for Fulbrighters? Since this is something that's very, very different than many of them in their home countries.
Yes. So the main Fulbright option, Fulbright health insurance option is the accident and sickness program for exchanges coverage. All Fulbright students and scholars are covered under this coverage. We also call it ASPE. Now, ASPE is not a comprehensive health insurance plan. So if a university that you're placed in requires you to have a more comprehensive plan, and they require you to purchase a university health insurance and to enroll for their health insurance, then your Fulbright program will cover the cost of the health insurance for the university plan.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to ask this to all Fulbrighters. I think I'll start with Ziad next. So I think most of you have mentioned that you used your university's disability or accommodations office, but I would say, like, what support did you receive generally also to help manage your disability while in the US? And Ziad, I just need you to unmute yourself again. I'm sorry. Oh, you are still muted. I'm afraid.
زياد بعدك ميوت.
هلا.
You're good now.
It's okay. Okay. From the beginning, I received the support from the orientation course. While in Indiana, they introduced me to the talking computers, the screen readers, and some of my colleagues in the Fulbright, group. No one knew about anything about talking computers, so they got from the university a Russian girl who was studying there, and she taught me a little bit about introduction to the computers. But as soon as I arrived to San Francisco State University, I went to the Disability Resource Center, and they provided me with a list of my rights, what can I ask for, what they can provide to me. And they got some mobility trainer for me who taught me about the campus, how to walk in the campus, and how to go from San Francisco State to downtown and to visit the lighthouse and the main streets and the main areas, and how to use the tram and how to use the light trains and everything, and like the transport and the buses. Also, they helped me to get a person who was blind. He was from Ivory Coast. Anyway, he taught me how to use the computer much better. Then the MEDs themselves, I submit a special application to get accessible computer, and they got me a computer with like 3-4 important programs, like the screen reader, which was window eyes, and then they got me the open book and pound and the whole package that I can use to access any books that I can scan and do. Then the Disability Resource Center introduced me to the Congress Library, and I got books on tapes, the tapes with 2 wheels. Then it was an old time, many years ago, like 95. So before even the CDs, I got books on tapes so that I can use and at the end of the semester and send them back. Also, they provide me with student assistants who can really read for me and type for me some, when I do some papers and anything, they can help me in typing and go with me to the library. And they are paid by the university, by the way. Also, they provide me with somebody to help me how to use the other services need. For example, they helped me to go to the bank, and then I went to the bank, the branch near the university. They give me a checkbook that is accessible with raised lines. Then they got me ATM card that I can use in the bank, and the bank sent somebody with me to train me how to use the banking, the ATM machines. Also, every other kind of every other week in the beginning, we used to do some fun activities with the international students, not Fulbright students, but all international students from all over the world. And San Francisco is a very diverse university. You can find people from all over the world there. Somebody accompanied me during these trips. We went to wherever. We went to Alcatraz, we went down Chinatown, Japantown, and other places, and we did a lot of activities. Somebody always was with me, and on campus there was the vehicles that can take you from, if you need, of course. I used them once or twice in 2 years. I don't know why, but I did. But my other colleagues who have quadriplegia or some other problems, they could use them every day. Vehicles take you from your accommodations, from the apartment to the to the halls, to everywhere you like on campus, of course. And whenever you need any equipment such as braille machines or other recording machines that you need to use, you can get them from the Disability Research Center, and at the end of the semester, you have to turn them back. Otherwise, you wouldn't get your grades. You have to give them back. Also, they give you other types of accommodations if you need, for example, I would say a letter to your professor to know about accommodations that you are in need for, such as extra time, writer, sign language interpreter. They will let every professor that you are enrolled in his or her class know exactly about what you need and what you might get, what you need to get in order to make, to have, what are the reasonable accommodations that you need in order to be equal, to have equal access to everything in the class, even in the library. And these are the things I remember.
No, that's really great, Ziad. Emmanuel, can you talk a little bit about how Amethyst and also IIE or last, or how Fulbright generally supports disabled students during the program?
Well, during the program, Amethyst will provide ongoing support throughout their degree program, the moment they land to the time that they graduate. And so we'll provide support when it comes to transportation when they land, if they need help with shuttles, locating shuttles, and then looking for housing. We'll provide them resources through the university offices, like international office or disability office. Where is the best place to live, whether it's on campus or off campus? So we will provide ongoing support whenever the moment that they arrive, even before they arrive. And so we'll communicate with students regularly, but not every week, but just to make sure that they've settled in well and they have all the resources that they need. And that we want to ensure that they're receiving the level of support, not just from the university, but from the professors, from the staff, those who are working with them academically. And then if there are issues with their degree program, we'll follow up with the professors and the staff or academic advisors when needed.
Great. I think that we've talked a lot about the accommodations, so I'm trying to think what's the right next thing to talk about. I guess, Emmanuel, you can also talk about this a little bit more. What is like what kind of accommodations do universities offer? And does every university in the US have a disability or accommodation office?
Yes, most universities will have a disabilities office, which will provide academic support, mobility support, mental health counseling, life support, life issues as far as housing and banking and things like that. They'll provide support. Now, each university, their services will differ and range from being very comprehensive or very minimum support. And some offer better support than others. But the universities that we worked with that have pretty strong support will provide mobility support for those in wheelchairs or have visual impairment. They'll provide audiobooks, book readers, braille equipment, sign language interpreters, and other specialty equipment that will help the student throughout their academic time. Some will also disability offices or universities will partner with local organizations that work with persons with disabilities within the community, and that also provide support to students, hopefully, in most cases, for a minimum cost.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask this generally the students, for the Fulbrighters. Did you find the United States supportive of those with disabilities? And for Hazem, you previously about how the Americans with Disability Act positively impacted your Fulbright experience. Can you start by telling us a little bit about that?
Okay, when I arrived in the US in the year 2000, the ADA, American with Disabilities Act, was already 10 years old. They were celebrating the 10th anniversary. So it opened my eyes to a new world regarding the rights of persons with disabilities, a completely new approach. And so I learned a lot about, my rights. Like, for example, during travel. When I traveled to the US, I took an airline. I will not name the airline now. And I was traveling with 4 of my Fulbright colleagues, just like coincidence. We were all, on the same plane. And then in one airport in Europe, my colleague was asked to sign a document for me, like he will be responsible for me or something, as if I am not even a human being. And it was very humiliating. But then when I was in the US, I learned that this is not something right, And so from that moment on, I decided I will never, and I always picked fights at airports, including in North America or in Europe or elsewhere, about my right to travel without having to sign any document. So I kind of gained a different self-awareness and understanding of my rights as a person, as a human being. And so that was a turning point for me. It helped me a lot also in helping craft laws and regulations in Syria and in advising elsewhere in the Middle East and North Africa and in the Arab world on the rights of persons with disabilities. And I also learned a lot from that, law, because that was, remember, before 2006, and then where we had the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So that was a very influential law at that time, and it did really help me, gain a different understanding to the legal aspect and the modern approaches to disability.
Thanks. Elsa, what about your experience? Did you find the U.S. supportive of people with disabilities?
Yeah, so I mean, working from Hazim's answer, I think largely because of the ADA, one thing that I was really struck by in the US is the standardization of accommodation and access throughout the country in a way that was quite different from my experiences back home, that I could expect similar types of supports or systems to be in place no matter where I traveled, no matter who I traveled with, that there would be accessible options on websites, that there would be advisors at various locations such as airports to be able to support me in any way that I might need. And that certainly made my experience here in the US a lot less stressful, because I could rely on a standard of care and access no matter where I was, no matter where Fulbright and IIE sent me for my enrichment seminars, or where my conference travel would take me, or visiting national parks. I could always expect a particular type and standard of care and access. And I found that that was particularly true with systems that were in place for being able to seek support, to be able to express concerns about access or disability, and to be able to access modifications that for the most part are well implemented throughout the country. I will say, as with anything, sometimes it can depend on the individuals that you're interacting with. I find this especially with being someone who lives with a service dog, that despite federal law and dictating that I have access to restaurants and taxis and things like that, that there are at times altercations that arise through an individual not wanting a dog in a space, regardless of what the law is. But that goes back to one of my earlier points of, I spent a lot of time researching what my rights were about that. So when those moments do arise, I feel supported in general by the infrastructure and policies of the US in order to be able to justify and explain what my access rights are as an individual with a disability who mitigates that through the use of a service dog.
Ziad, did you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah, I just want to say that ADA is really something that makes, let me say, education as well as labor opportunities and lives of people with disabilities in America is really something easier, much easier than many countries. Regarding this, I would say that one day on campus, I find that one of my colleagues who has a quadriplegia cannot go to the swimming pool. And I did a campaign with awareness raising campaign about his right to go there, and as part of one of my classes. And in the end, the university immediately launched a project with like $35,000 or something like that to make to build a lift in the pool so he can use to go into the water to accommodate him. And that was one of the things that I got distinguished student certificate from the university, because they are willing to do. And I got to be a friend with the person who is in charge of the ADA office, who was really following everything with all departments in the university, with all buildings, to make sure that every inch of the university is accessible physically, and every service is accessible for each person, specifically persons with disabilities and persons who have, in the United States, disability is defined differently, like persons who have something like with smelling, some people who cannot really have perfume or, smell perfumes, that they told us not to enter to the office while you are wearing a perfume. So they consider everything, every little difference for people to ensure that everybody is getting his or her rights on the spot. And whatever else, like books, whatever library services I said, like accessibility on the sidewalks or the streets of the university, everything completely is accessible. Even I took an ADA class with American professor who used to tell us and tell other students about the rights of persons with disabilities from the ADA point of view.
Thank you. So we only have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to ask my last question. I'm going to ask each Fulbrighter speaker. I'm going to combine 2 questions. The first question, and they go hand in hand. The first question is, was it hard managing your workload as a Fulbrighter, studying, volunteering, participating in cultural exchange with your disability? Part of the question is, what is your advice for students who are coming to the what advice do you have for future Fulbrighters who are considering coming to the United States that have disabilities? So I'm going to start with Sharif, and then we'll go to Alyssa next.
So yes, it was challenging, and it's still challenging. I'm still in the program, but the thing that I'm learning that being conscious and being aware of your disability and acknowledge it and know exactly how you tackle it, and at the same time do your work that is needed to be done, letting people know, and also it's a challenge, but yet being conscious about it and tackling it practically helps a lot, and it shouldn't impact any of your dreams, or be reluctant or even question that you should apply for the program or not. Like, do it and follow your dream regardless of your circumstances or challenges or disabilities or anything. Just do it. And the advice, the advice, actually take it easy and don't forget to enjoy your time, because I forgot to enjoy my time. Yeah, it was too hectic, but like, if I went back, I would enjoy my time more. Yeah, thanks.
Isa?
Yeah, so for that first question, I definitely found it at times really difficult, especially during really busy work periods like comprehensive exams or at the changing of the seasons. Part of my disease means I don't regulate body temperature. So I learned very quickly that being in a city that is extremely hot in summer and extremely cold in winter meant that it would always take me a little bit of time to kind of recover during those periods of transition. And as frustrating as it would sometimes be that I couldn't do everything that I wanted or take advantage of every opportunity, I learned the hard way that it was a lot easier to take a step back and give my body a chance to recuperate, rather than to keep pushing and pushing and end up burning out, because the recovery time and the emotional strain of burning out far exceeds that of taking a short break to allow yourself to kind of reach a stable footing before you keep going. As for advice, my two big things are to be prepared and to be excited. We've spoken a lot today about ways that you can get ready during the application process or prior to your departure, and those really help in reducing the stress and strain upon arrival in the US. But also just be excited. There are so many amazing opportunities that are available to you through the Fulbright Association. So I would highly recommend upon arrival in the United States to reach out through either the Fulbright directory, which has just been kind of rejuvenated online, or even through local chapters. Here in Chicago, we have a super active chapter of the Fulbright Association that meets quarterly for events. Used to be in person, right now everything's done virtually. But that's a really wonderful way of being able to stay connected with your Fulbright alumni and Fulbright family, even during the stress of then your program and getting your work done. And then I would just say be ready for the adventure, because the places that you're going to go and the people you're going to meet and the things that you'll learn will remain with you far after your degree finishes.
I think I'm going to second a little bit about what Elsa and Sharif have said, because my biggest advice is also to advocate for yourself. It is something that's challenging to do, and it's something you feel comfortable doing, but it really makes a difference. But we also want to remind you that while this is a program to get your master's degree or work on your PhD or whatever program it is, it's also a cultural exchange experience. And so you should never let your disability or anything else in your life get in the way of having those cultural experiences. That's trying new foods, volunteering in your community, going to national parks is very popular. You know, really enjoy the cultural experience. At the end of the day, this is a cultural exchange program as much as it's an educational exchange program. So I think we'll do Hazim, and then I'll have, if Manny wants to say anything else.
I don't have to add a lot to what Sharif and Elsa said, because they said it all almost. But I also second what you said, that with Fulbright is also about having a cosmopolitan citizen of the world kind of mentality. And so I encourage anybody with disability to do apply and not to be afraid. Don't think your disability will count against you. Rather, think of it as something plus, depending on also on what other achievements you have and grades, etc. And if you get approved or selected, make sure you enjoy your experience to the fullest. Do tell people what disabilities and needs you have. They will accommodate you, and problems will be solved. I went to the emergency room and I stayed 5 days in the hospital for having urinary tract infection only, and my bill was $27,000, and I was asked to pay it. But then I said, I'm not paying. I don't even have this amount. And Amidist helped me resolve this issue. So also, know that there will be a helping hand. Don't worry. Enjoy your life, as Elsa said, and go around. I visited many states in the US, and I visit more states than many Americans did. And also we had all these orientation programs. We didn't mention them in details here. These are also very interesting ways to get to know people from around the world, and also to connect with other people and learn about other cultures too, not just about the US. And then you will have friends who usually end up in high places one day, and this is true. And so do enjoy your experience to the fullest.
Ziad, do you want to have any?
Yes, a little briefly. When I finished my high school, I was seeing with one eye. Then after 10 years, when I finished my BA, before that, my family refused to let me go to Egypt to study political science or law. So I did study at Hebron University. But then when I finished my BA, I prepared everything, and 1 week before I left, I told my family, I'm going to the States. So because I wanted it to happen. And my recommendation to everybody, if you want it from your heart, just do it, and be sure everybody will help you to do it. Don't hesitate. Be adventurous, be courageous. Remember always that your main goal is to obtain a master's degree, but it's not your only goal. There is another life that you should enjoy every minute. The United States is very large and very rich with opportunities that you cannot miss it. Be aware that you have a lot to learn besides your academic degree. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel, do you have any last words to say?
Just one quick, I just wanted to echo what Alex had said about being an advocate for yourself and being able to communicate all your needs, the needs that you have, your disability, from, like we had said earlier, from the beginning to the end, because the Ahmadis, the commission countries, and the Department of State want to support you throughout the beginning of the placement process to the end of your program. And so if we don't know that you need support in a particular area, from housing to academics to equipment, then we won't be able to help you. So it's really important, no matter how embarrassed you may feel, to communicate your needs. And if we can help you, and if there's support there, available financial support, we will help. And just again, just be and also enjoy your time. It isn't just about the academics, like Alex had said. This is a cultural exchange.
Yes,
and
yes.
We want this to be a full experience for you.
Great. And I should say that also goes for students that are applying from other countries outside the Middle East, North Africa region. If you're applying through a Fulbright Commission or from an IAE or LASPAL country, we have Fulbright is very, very supportive across all of your organizations in whatever country you come from. That is also standardized across the board. So thank you for our panelists for joining us today. I'd like also to say, if you're interested in learning more about the Fulbright program, you can go to our website at the State Department website, learn more about the main program. But you can also, if you're applying for the Middle East, North Africa, you can go to ahmadis.org and click on the Fulbright program page. You can also follow the Fulbright program on social media, also Fulbright. And we also have a blog on Medium that has stories from our Fulbrighters for a wide variety of experiences. If you're interested in learning about what life is like in the United States for our Fulbrighters, or about what our alumni have done after they graduated. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us via our websites. But With that, I want to thank everyone again and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.